It's list season. Grossi Posse Packer Nation, welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. It's the most wonderful time of the year. No, we're not talking about Christmas. We're talking about ranking lists, Grossi, and today we are going to kick it off with football on the horizon, the Hall of Fame game being played tomorrow. It's about damn time to start ranking some players. We're going to start out with the top 10 QBs, then we're going to go to running backs, then we're going to go wide receivers. Not going to do tight ends this year because it's Travis Kelce. Just put him down for 1 through 5. And so, this, of course, is just my opinion. This is not an indication on how well I think they're going to do this year. This list is instead heading into the season. Here's where I rank the top 10 QBs. And so, let's get started with number 10. A little controversy, perhaps. You got Tua Tagovailoa, the QB from the Miami Dolphins. Now, Tua, there's like an asterisk here because like you could put Kirk Cousins around this list because while it is always funny to make fun of Kirk Cousins, and maybe I softened on him a little bit because of quarterback, he is actually pretty darn good. But Tua, I feel like the ceiling is just so much higher. But of course, it comes with the very real risk of injury. Tua has been battling injuries for his entire collegiate and also NFL career, whether it's serious concussions, which at this point has to be the main concern. The point is that Tua, when he's on the field, makes the Dolphins a much better football team and an explosive offense that Mike McDaniel wants to run. And even though he missed a bunch of games last season, he still had a 64.8% completion rating, had over 3,500 yards, 25 touchdowns, and only 8 interceptions. The guy is a damn good football player. And of course, there are a lot of question marks, but when we have seen Tua play, it's been pretty damn good. I know he's constantly underrated by the media, but over his NFL career over these past 3 years, he's had a 65.7% completion rating, over 8,000 yards, 52 touchdowns, and 23 interceptions. He's got a QB rating of 95. So Tua definitely can be their guy. It's just, can he stay on the field? And in my opinion, when he's on the field, he's a top 10 QB. Then to number 9, a guy who's making his way up the rankings. That's going to be T-Law Trevor Lawrence. And some of you already might be like, Tom, whoa, T-Law at 9? That's way too low. And the only reason I have him down here at 9 is because we really only have a sample size of about 1 year. That first year, his rookie year, it was with Urban Meyer, and I'm kind of throwing that in the garbage. Since then, he has made phenomenal strides, and he has looked like their franchise QB, and he's also an amazing person, but that has nothing to do with the ranking. That's just a nice thing that I like to mention. Trevor Lawrence in his 2 years in the NFL has a 62.9% completion rating, over 7,700 yards, 37 touchdowns, 25 interceptions. And again, the interceptions are a little bit high, but last year he only had 8 interceptions and threw 25 touchdowns and over 4,100 yards. So a remarkable improvement from his rookie year where they really did not have a head coach. Now, not only do they have the coach, but they also have an offense that's built around him. Whether you have Ingram or Etienne or Kirk, they're going to be pretty damn good this year. Now, add Calvin Ridley into the mix. The Jacksonville Jaguars are not only poised to win their division, I think they're going to start making some noise in the AFC. As long as their offensive line can hold up and their defense can get a bit better, watch out because those glitter kitties, they're going meow. Number 8, Scooter will be happy because he's on this list, but you got to give him his due, and that is Mr. Dak Prescott. And Dak usually is not held in high regards, whether it's his ability in the playoffs, which he usually doesn't do super duper well, or it's just the hatred of the Cowboys. And trust me, I get that latter point. But Dak over his career has been pretty damn good. Over his career, 66.6% completion rating. Scooter won't like that part. Close to 25,000 yards, 166 touchdowns, 65 interceptions, has over 20 rushing TDs. And last year was not his best year. Had a 66.2% completion rating, which is pretty damn solid, but completed a little over 2,800 yards, 23 touchdowns, but he had 15 interceptions. So those interceptions definitely a bit higher, But Dak is the guy who makes that offense go. Their offensive line is not as good. Zeke, is no longer on the team, but wasn't even close to form last year. Tony Pollard being their main weapon. And it was between Dak and CeeDee Lamb that really made that entire offense. Now with guys like Michael Gallup coming back, Tony Pollard being the featured number 1 running back, I think the Cowboys are in good shape. They're in a weak NFC, and I think they can make a run. Now, do they have the coach and the overall talent to make a Super Bowl run? That I can't tell you. But for my money, Dak is a top 10 QB. I wouldn't be surprised if Trevor Lawrence and Tua pass him this year on my personal rankings. But for now, Dak is at number 8. Number 7, you got Jalen Hurts. And Hurts, I think you can make a really strong argument for ranking even higher on this list. But the reason I haven't ranked him higher is same thing with Trevor Lawrence. While Jalen has an additional year, even though he wasn't really the full starter, I just want to see the consistency from Jalen Hurts. Can he replicate it this year? Because last year, Jalen Hurts was a monster. Over his 3-year career in the NFL, 62.3% of his passes completed, right under 8,000 yards, 44 touchdowns, 19 interceptions, has rushed for nearly 1,900 yards, and rushed for 26 touchdowns. And last season, oh boy, did he have himself a year. 66.5% of his passes completed, 3,700 yards, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and had 13 rushing touchdowns. Jalen Hurts proved that he can not only be their franchise QB, but is a QB with a very, very high ceiling. There's a reason that they made it to the Super Bowl. Now, again, they had a great offensive line, a great run game, and they have wide receivers who were phenomenal, like Devontae Smith and, of course, A.J. Brown. So while Jalen Hurts is definitely in a good spot in Philadelphia with a great, strong supporting cast, he also showed that he is a damn good QB. If Jalen Hurts is able to replicate the success he had last year at the position, I imagine he is going to be in my top 5 next year. But until then, it's wait and see, and it's number 7 for Jalen Hurts. Number 6, you got Lamar Jackson. And there's some asterisks here as well, because Lamar Jackson dealing with lots of injury issues, hopefully with a strong supporting cast and a healthy supporting cast this year, the Ravens can finally go on the run that they've been waiting for, because they have the ability. But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about Lamar Jackson. Throughout his career, 63.7% completion rating, 101 passing touchdowns with only 38 interceptions, is usually very careful with the football, has over 4,400 rushing yards and 24 rushing TDs. Last year, of course, dealing with injury, 62.3% of his passes completed, had 17 passing touchdowns and 7 interceptions, and had 3 rushing touchdowns. Lamar Jackson's a damn good player, and I know for the majority of his career, he got the running back jokes because he's a very efficient runner, but he can stretch the ball down the field. You do wonder, hey, I wonder if he had some better wide receivers, if his stats would be higher. Well, now, hopefully he's gotten some better wide receivers. Of course, you have Rashad Bateman, but you also bring in OBJ. Mark Andrews, I imagine, is going to return to form this year as well. But Lamar Jackson, former MVP, sitting there outside the top 5, though when healthy, can definitely be considered a top 5 QB. Number 5, you got the guy who just got extended. You got Justin Herbert. And Herbie, yes, he has not won a playoff game, but that guy is freaking fracking clutch. And I knew it the minute that I watched that game against the Raiders for the winner who was going to go into the playoffs, and Justin Herbert, that entire drive, making those conversions on 4th down. Herbie is that guy. With no more Joe Lombardi, you got to think that offense is going to be able to flourish. Hopefully they're able to protect him a bit, but he earned that contract. Throughout his career, 66.9% completion rating, which, by the way, is higher than every other QB on this list except for one. So yeah, he's efficient. Over 14,000 yards, 94 touchdowns, only 35 interceptions, is careful with the ball, even has 8 rushing touchdowns. And last year, he had a great year. 68.2% completion rating, over 4,700 yards, 25 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. Now, Justin Herbert has a lot of weapons. Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. Of course, they just got Quentin Johnson, who I'm really excited for on that offense. And you have Austin Eckler. How long is he going to stay there? Well, that's a different conversation. But the point is that they need to unleash Justin Herbert. They have the skill players on offense. They need to just put it all together and just stop making Herbert check it down. Hopefully, with a healthy year, Justin Herbert can really just go ham on this league and justify why I have him in the top 5. Number 4, you got my former QB, the bad man, Aaron Rodgers. And you might think that's a little high, Tom, especially last year wasn't his greatest. However, I think Aaron Rodgers is still a top 5 QB. His entire career, I mean, I don't have to recap it all, 65.3% completion rating, over 59,000 yards, 475 touchdowns, 105 interceptions, but we're not talking about that. We're going to talk about last year. Last year, he struggled a bit, 26 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, which is high for him, and just under 3,700 yards. However, Aaron Rodgers also was dealing with an offense that had brand new receivers in it. On top of that, he had a broken thumb since week 5. And I'm not trying to make excuses for Aaron Rodgers, and no, I don't think he's the best quarterback in the league anymore, but I think his playing ability is still incredibly high. I think with some protection, he's going to do very well in New Jersey, and I think that they are Super Bowl contenders with Aaron Rodgers. The guy can still make insane throws, just maybe not at the consistency that we're used to, but the guy was a back-to-back MVP just a couple seasons ago. So I still think Aaron Rodgers has it. Are there going to be growing pains with the Jets offense? Most likely, but I would be very surprised if they weren't in the playoffs this coming January. And I think this year, Aaron Rodgers is going to remind the world that he's frickin' frackin' Aaron Rodgers. Number 3, you got Josh Allen, another guy who didn't have his best season last year, dealing with a bunch of injuries, but Josh Allen's a damn good player. The one number that, of course, concerns me, the amount of interceptions that he throws. 60 interceptions on his career, but has a 62.5% completion rating, over 18,000 yards, 138 touchdowns, and of course, he's phenomenal with his legs. Over 3,000 yards rushing and 38 rushing touchdowns. Now, last year, 63.3% completion rating, had over 4,200 yards, 35 touchdowns, 14 interceptions. But you also have to look at the context of that. The Bills don't really have a running game. They have some holes in their offensive line, and they also make Josh Allen do everything. And for the most part, that works out, in which they basically give him a Patrick Mahomes level of responsibility, and for the majority of times, it wins them football games. Now, when Josh Allen is hurt, of course, that's going to reduce the probability of them winning games, but overall, I think Josh Allen is still an elite QB. I'm very curious to see how he plays this year. Without injury, they got Dalton Kincaid, a tight end. We'll see how quickly he's going to get in the fold, because again, usually takes a while for rookie tight ends to make an impact. But Josh Allen, damn good player. You can put the entire game on his shoulders, and more often than not, he's going to make some magic. Number 2, the guy with the highest completion rating on this list, and that is Joey B, Joe Burrow. 68.2% completion rating, which is the highest on this list, as I mentioned. Over 11,000 yards, 82 touchdowns, 31 interceptions throughout his career, over 517 rushing yards, and 10 rushing touchdowns. And Joe Burrow is like sneaky fast and good on his feet. And Burrow has impressed me since the second he's gotten into this league. It was that Thursday night game against the Browns. And just to see his poise and how cool he was and comfortable in the pocket was incredible. And the Bengals, for a while, did not have a good offensive line. Last season, 35 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, had a 68.3% completion rating. Joe Burrow, even though they have a lot of weapons in T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, Joe Mixon when he's healthy and ready to go, he is their franchise. Let's be very clear here. There is a reason why there are a lot more Bengals fans nowadays, and it's because of Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow has literally resurrected this franchise. And I will say, all of the accolades that he is getting thrown at him are well earned. He's one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the NFL. He has shown that he can win big games. He's clutch. He's already gone to a Super Bowl. And this year, they're going to attempt to again. And if they do, a big reason is going to be because of Joe Burrow. And number 1, no surprise here whatsoever. You got the reigning MVP and Super Bowl champ, Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes, 3-time All-Pro, 66.3% completion rating, over 24,000 yards, 192 touchdowns, and under 50 interceptions. That's pretty damn good. Last year, tore the league up with over 5,200 yards, had 41 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. Mahomes, even without a top wide receiver, help take his team to the Super Bowl and win it. Now, of course, he has Andy Reid, who's a Hall of Fame coach, and you have Travis Kelce, who is arguably the best tight end of all time. That definitely helps. But for them to get Isaiah Pacheco, who they got in the 7th, and Juju Smith-Schuster and MVS, guys who were like good on their other teams, but not great, he was able to help will them to a Super Bowl on one freaking leg. And I think it's important to have some perspective here because it's easy to be like, oh yeah, Patrick Mahomes is the best QB. But the things that he is doing out there, you just don't see other QBs do. And I'm not just talking about the no-look passes because there's other players that do that, right? Rodgers has done that. Stafford has done that. But it's his ability to go out there and legitimately make magic happen. Whether it's on one leg, whether it's scrambling around the pocket, whether it's rushing outside the pocket and throwing underhand, whether it's a shuffle pass, whether it's an insane throw across his body, Patrick Mahomes can make every single throw in the NFL and also make throws and plays that you didn't think were possible. So yeah, Patrick Mahomes is the #1 QB in this league. And right this second, besides maybe Joe Burrow, I don't see another player getting particularly close to taking that title from him. So just to recap, at #1, you got Mahomes, 2, Burrow, 3, Allen, 4, Rodgers, 5, Herbert, #6 is Lamar Jackson, 7, Jalen Hurts, 8, Dak Prescott, 9, Trevor Lawrence, and 10, you got Tua. But that's just my opinion heading into this season. We'll see how this is going to shake up, and we'll do this again next offseason. But of course, let me know what you think down in the comments below. You know how to send me at TomGrossiComedy.com or TomGrossiComedy, all social media, see down below. Check out Patcast on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, and of course YouTube. And a big shout and thank you to all the patrons over at patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy and the YouTube members. But thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.